Good morning, my fellow seasoned, pragmatic, sober patriots. Let's go to CNN's webpage for today's stories. Why Virginia's abolition of the death penalty is a big deal for the state and the U.S. This is clearly an opinion piece, but it isn't labeled as one. In the picture, it has what appears to be Governor Ralph Northam, Ralphie boy, signing the decree abolishing the death penalty. He's not wearing a mask. Is he giving the death penalty to everybody witnessing his signing? Take a look at the first sentence of this story. In 1608, Jamestown colonists executed a man named Captain George Kendall, who had been accused of spying for Spain. And they go on to say that this was Virginia's first death penalty case. Don't worry, Virginia. We can still execute spies, and we don't need Virginia's permission. In fact, we can still execute spies in Virginia if we so choose, because, well, if you commit spying or treason against the United States, that's a federal law, not a state law. And the federal government can still execute you even in the state of Virginia. Now, this story is divided into 3 subsections. The first one was labeled Virginia, a leading death penalty state. And it goes on to say how Virginia is the first southern state to abolish the death penalty. Let's talk about another state that still has the death penalty. My home state, New York. Of course, it hasn't used it since 1963, and it was against a man from my hometown of Buffalo. But it's still on the books because New York, as left-leaning as it is, it's still not crazy enough to abolish the death penalty completely. It may not use it, but its governor knows he doesn't want to abolish it. Let's see if Governor Northam's gamble about signing away the death penalty comes back to bite him in the ass next year when he comes up for re-election. Now, the second of these 3 sections in the story is labeled A Sign of Racial Justice, and it goes on to say that a disproportionate number of black people are executed versus white. Now, funny thing how they say disproportionate, because according to FBI statistics, 55.9%, so let's say 56% of all murders are committed by blacks. So, shouldn't that mean that 56% of all capital punishments should be black people? But they're not. So it appears to me that that disproportionate amount of people being executed are white, not black. The third section signals the erosion of capital punishment. The Democrats have always been against capital punishment. I can only hope that Republicans retake the governorship of Virginia in the next election and restore it. Let's go on to this second story from CNN. I've covered national news. Let's go on to, well, partially international news. Mexico's Wuhan flu death toll may be 60% higher than officially reported. Wow. Before I start giving my opinion on this, let's again look at the beginning of this article. Mexico's government has released a new report that shows nearly 120,000 victims of the Wuhan flu may have gone uncounted until now, a finding which would raise the country's death toll from the virus by nearly 60%. Look at the weasel words in this next sentence. The new health minister report suggests that a total of more than 321,000 people have likely died from the Wuhan flu since the start of the pandemic. So they don't know. It's sort of like in the US, where if after you die, say from a car accident, and you're shown to have had the Wuhan flu, that's what they're going to put on the death certificate. Mexico, after all, has a socialist president and a socialist government, so why wouldn't they play up the death numbers now? Now, if the Wuhan flu is raging through Mexico, like this story likes to indicate, doesn't it mean that we should further tighten our borders down like we have under President Trump and not allow anybody in from Mexico at the current moment? That we should not be throwing open our doors? Is Beijing Biden endangering the health of the average American for political expediency? Wow! CNN certainly seems to be saying that in this article. I guess it all depends on what you want to read into the story.